college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer, fansided.com. I'm joined today by a man who plans on doing this show with me longer than Aaron Rodgers plans on playing for the Steelers. A man who does not have a fake wife, has a real wife, and a man who I don't think he's been to Pittsburgh, but he might have been to Pittsburgh less than what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. Cody Williams, content director, fanside.com. How the hell are you?
I've never been to Pittsburgh, but I have seen Three Rivers, so I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing good, man. Glad to be here on the show. How you doing, man? How's life?
Oh, pretty good. We're getting a little bit different time change here. It's weird having a dry hair at this time of
Yeah,
night.
yeah.
It's kind of crazy. I think it's crazy that our families are from Appalachia, but haven't been to the capital of Appalachia. The
Yeah.
irony.
No, of course not. That's not the way it works. But while you're here, starters, we love you guys. Make sure you hit that like button like Aaron Rodgers does the peace pipe. And then, maybe watch the whole episode and take it in like he does, some darkness retreat. There you go. We should do the
Yeah,
whole episode in darkness. Just turn off all the lights. That's the Aaron Rodgers episode.
I know. Really find yourself with the help of some gay. Let's do
That's
that.
right.
My God, that's gross. But we obviously fall started here. Our first and 15 is going to be about a guy who doesn't believe of any of that S. Because it doesn't mean enough to him. Let's start with Steve Spurrier jumping off the top rope to crush the Arch Manning hype train into a pulp. I believe he was on his podcast talking to Pat Dooley down there in Gainesville about Arch Manning. He said something to the tune of, most people picking Texas to win the SEC. They've got Arch Manning already winning the Heisman too. My question is, if he was this good, how come they let Quinn Ewers play all the time last year? And he was 7th round pick. God, that ball coach is amazing.
Dude, don't get Steve Spurrier hyped up or he's going to say some S, man, and it's going to be glorious. I love it so much. I mean, I don't share the sentiment at all, but I respect Steve Spurrier for coming out here and swinging like this.
I mean, the stuff that Steve Spurrier is in a lexicon, like, oh, they're going to go 7-6 and win a bowl game doing cartwheels in the street.
Right.
I write that at least once a week.
Cartwheels in the street, getting some Arby's in. He's just a legend. You can't never change.
And he can't spell citrus without UT.
Dude, forget Nick Saban. Let Steve Spurrier replace Lee Corso on game day. That's what the world actually needs.
I know. I mean, he may or may not wear a shirt like Iggy Pop, but he'll be there.
Hey, you know what? I'm here for old man shirtless Steve Spurrier on game day.
And yet you have Iggy Pop as the guest picker up in Detroit. Like, he's got some Merlot, and then you got Steve Spurrier with a Baywood beer going.
That's right. Old Milwaukee's best for sure.
It'll get no better than this. But there's some truth to this, but I think it's a little bit hyperbole. I would say for me, look, do I think Arch Manning is going to be really good at some point? Yes. Eventually, we got to see this happen, though. It's the same thing with JJ McCarthy. I'm like, let's not crown somebody before they've even really played a game that matters. Mississippi State and ULM don't matter, believe it or not.
Right. No, 100%. And I think that's a really good way to frame it, is he took a kernel of truth and stretched it out into a full-blown bag of popcorn, really is what it boiled down to. And I am high on Texas. I'm a believer in Arch Manning, and I think that he's going to be good sooner rather than later. But at the same time, we haven't seen it, and that's why there is skepticism about them. And that's why when we talk about national championship picks, it's really hard to say anyone other than Clemson or Penn State right now, because you look at every other team that's in the upper echelon of the college football playoff odds, and there's questions at quarterback. There's not questions with those two teams really. And so that's what separates Penn State and Clemson. That's why we're as confident as we are in them, among other reasons, of course. But Texas has a great roster. Arch Manning is talented. And yes, Quinn Ewers was a 7th round pick, but that's because he didn't perform up to expectations. Arch Manning was behind him because Quinn Ewers knew the offense better, had more experience, and frankly is more talented than a 7th round pick. There's a lot of nuance lost in what Steve Spurrier is saying there, which I think is probably his point, but that's neither here nor there.
I don't think he majored in nuance at Florida. What do you think he majored in?
He majored in black and white, man. That's life wasn't in Technicolor.
No, he majored in ethics, there's a right or a wrong, and with everything,
Right.
speech comm,
That's
leisure
right.
studies, leisure pool studies going
That's
around.
right.
But you look at like Clemson and Penn State, these are two teams that we just know more about. There's about five teams, and I would throw Texas in that group with Oregon, Notre Dame, Georgia, and Ohio State. We're like, we like a lot of what they're doing, but there's also a great deal of unknown with certain factors of their team that could hold them back, could propel them forward. Again, right at this time, we don't know. We may have leanings about any of those five more so than the others, but that's kind of where, like, yeah, Texas is a lock to make the playoff, but they're also playing the fourth hardest schedule in the country.
Right. 100%. And like, you know what happens when you play the fourth hardest schedule in the country? A, you find out how good Arch Manning really is. And B, Arch Manning also gets to cut his teeth. Like, Arch Manning's not going to be playing Mississippi State and ULM. Like, even if he comes out against Ohio State in week one and isn't like he has some struggles, which I think is fully reasonable to expect him to have. Like, you're playing in Columbus against an Ohio State defense, like, not exactly an easy runway into this. And like, even if he struggles, I think he probably learns a hell of a lot from that.
You're a long way from Isidore Newman, ain't you, boy?
you you definitely are. They're gonna try to throw him in the Olatanji, that's for sure.
No, 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 no beignets, just horseshoes.
That's right.
Uh, But anyway, I guess I'm trying to remember my thought here, but like we'll talk about this on a segment coming up. Texas has to play on the road at Georgia, at Ohio State, and at Florida, and you probably need to win at least one of those three games to make the playoff.
Yeah, and which I think they can do. Like, Texas is a good football team. Like, let's not be out of the realm
No,
of possibility. And like, as tough a game as that is going to be for Arch Manning, and I understand it's a home game, it's still going to be a tough matchup and a tough stage for Julian Sayin or Lincoln Kineholtz to step into either. Like, that playing, like, I think that game I'm very excited to see. There's also a really good chance that Texas versus Ohio State is a very ugly game because of the
yeah,
inexperience at quarterback.
yeah, because Sand and Kreinholz don't have much either, and then also you have a lot of defensive talent
Mhm.
there with Texas,
Yeah, and Ohio State too.
with Ohio State too. Yeah, with
Like, Caleb Downs for sure picking off Arch Manning. I'll go ahead and jot that prediction down right now.
yeah, that's definitely happening. And then Lincoln Kineholtz and Julian saying will get sacked. That is going to happen too.
100%. Anthony Hill's gonna bury him in the dirt. That's for sure.
You're a long way from where you want to go there, boy.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I kind of wish Spurrier was coaching it like today somewhere.
I wish he was coaching both teams in that game. Hell, like just switching sidelines.
Okay, let's say he was done with, like, the SEC with South Carolina. Like where would he go coach? Like what's another place that would be like amazing for him?
I mean, I feel like West Virginia, like, considering they just had an opening, West Virginia would be sick. And like also just to like hold it over Jimbo's head too would make it even better.
West Virginia would be amazing. I thought about him going back to Duke.
Oh,
Like,
that'd be sick. That would be sick. Well, I mean, it'd be terrible for me, but it'd be sick at the same time.
no, just a completely different, like 35 years of just like life has happened. Now you're back.
What would be the biggest culture shock to him? I think that's a fun one. Would it be Cal? Cal would be pretty funny.
Cal would be tough. I think Syracuse would be very tough
Oh, yeah.
because I don't even think it's academia. I think it's just like it's environment.
Yeah, 100%. He'd be like, why the hell are we playing at a dome?
I got it. Texas Tech. He's like, what is this S? What? I don't even like Buddy Holly.
You're supposed to eat the tortillas. What the hell are y'all doing?
And that'll be the day that I die. Oh my God. Jesus, I'm sitting here thinking about eating one of the tortillas and just Dana Holgerson's in just complete and utter shock.
Oh, 100%. Dana Holgerson can't contain himself.
And we can't contain ourselves with this next guy, maybe a guy that Steve Spurrier would have gone back to South Carolina to coach, LaNorris Sellers, but we got to start with some Duhast here real quick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't know how we're gonna keep this show on the rails. We did start with the head ball coach, so good luck with that.
We started off the rails.
It wasn't even on the track.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically just a model train in the middle of the floor.
Bubbles likes trains, and Ray likes drinking, and this is false start.
That's right.
So I believe Bruce Feldman had this. Apparently, LaNorris Sellers turned down a 2-year, $8 million NIL deal. I think his dad or LaNorris Sellers' father talked about with Bruce Feldman about this, saying that like, he doesn't want to like transfer. I think his brother's coming in
Hmm.
and everything like that. But Duhas, did LaNorris Sellers make the right call to turn down that money to stay at South Carolina?
I'm gonna go Duhas 1S, and I think it's pretty easy for me, honestly. Like, I understand $8 million is a lot of money. If I was 20 years old, like turning down $8 million, not an easy decision to make. I'm very well aware of that. But I also think like it's twofold for me. First of all, like just from a pure football sense, like Shane Beamer has done a lot, and this staff has done a lot of work already to develop LaNorris Sellers into a better quarterback than he was a year ago. And like LaNorris Sellers has an NFL future. He just has a lot more development left to go before he reaches that NFL future. But if you're already on an upward trajectory with this coaching staff, why not stay on that upward trajectory? Why would you upset the apple cart to like potentially botch that development or like go to another offensive scheme where they want you to be something like try to like shoehorn you into a role of not be who you are? Like I think the best thing that Shane Beamer and the staff have done is they're letting LaNorris Sellers be himself and then like develop his weaknesses while playing to his strengths. And that's a very good thing. So like from a future earnings perspective, I think it makes sense to stay at South Carolina and continue that. From a more like ethereal idea, I've always been attracted to the idea of being a legend at a program that's not Alabama, not Georgia, not Ohio State, not Texas. Like there's something appealing to that to me. Like there's a reason I was enamored to some degree with Johnny Football back in the day because like we hadn't seen someone who captured the entire sports imagination from a school like Texas A&M in a while. And so like that type of stuff matters to me. And I think from an ethereal perspective, like it's cool to see the quarterback of South Carolina be one of my favorite players in college football. Like that's not a world I'm used to living in as a college football analyst.
I think it is great that like, we had the attachment to him to South Carolina. And I think that that's part of what makes the sport so great
Hmm.
when people do stay put and just ride it out there, ride it out with their guys here. Um, I went back and forth on this, but I'm gonna go do Haas two S's.
Okay,
Here's
okay.
why. Yeah, just because I want to have something different out here. I kind of wonder in some instances if maybe we would get more out of his talent if he went and transferred to a program that was better equipped to handle like stars. Like again, some of these
Mhm.
programs you mentioned. And again, the money doesn't matter because maybe he could say, well, I need more to stay, or I'm going to go be the number one
Right,
pick by the Saints, which I don't think. I think he probably stay in school for maybe 2 more years
right.
to be QB1 and 27. Overarch. That's how I'm
There we
feeling.
go. I like it.
Yeah, I don't know if you clip that or this, but this is it's like there's things that have changed within South Carolina from last year to this year that have me a little concerned.
Mhm.
And again, I think the thing we feel about South Carolina is we love this team because we love him. We like Shane Beamer as a front runner. We believe in the talent of Dylan Stewart. We think Clayton White's a fantastic defensive coordinator. You lost Dowell Loggins to App State,
Mhm.
so you could potentially regress. Not saying that that's going to happen. You're not going to sneak up on anybody next year. I
True.
think that's another big factor. And then I just kind of feel like you may play with more talent at some of these other places. Like, what if you went to, I don't know, Alabama and he's throwing the ball to Ryan Williams? I mean,
Yeah.
that's one too. But like, I think he made the right decision for himself, and I'll always say that. But I think that there's a chance that some regret may emerge because South Carolina may not be the program that you and I want to believe it to be. We were hoping for it. I just don't know.
No, and I think that's a good point that like every decision is in a vacuum. And like I'm not going to ubiquitously say that every quarterback or every player should stay where they are for whatever reason. Like I don't fault we just speaking about guys that we've already talked about on this show, but like Julian Sain and Caleb Downs, like Nick Saban leaves, like hell yeah, leave Alabama. You went to Alabama to go play for Nick Saban. Now he's not there, go somewhere else. That's totally fine. Fernando Mendoza going to Indiana from Cal, like that's going to improve his chances of being an NFL draft pick. LaNorris Sellers is already on that trajectory, and it's like you said, like for him, I think he made the right decision. I understand your concerns, but like I also look at it as South Carolina's not hurting for talent. It's just less proven, perhaps less like upside. But like you have someone like Nick Harbor out there on the outside that he's throwing to who isn't as good as Ryan Williams. I'm not saying that, but like has ridiculous potential and physical tools that the North Sellers can help develop as well. And the other thing, in terms of like, you didn't use this word, but it was, I felt like it was coded with that in terms of like branding, in terms of
Yeah.
like that. I do think it is somewhat valuable for the North Sellers to be in the same, like in the rivalry with Cade Klubnik. Like I think that's a very valuable thing for LaNorris Sellers because that's going to generate like in the southeast that's going to generate a lot of excitement about that quarterback battle. Like people are going to be looking forward to Palmetto just to watch those two face off and square off as quarterbacks, as high end quarterbacks. And so like I think there's a lot that goes into this decision. It's not black and white. It's not Steve Spurrier School of Ethics, but like it is a like I'm still in favor of what it means for LaNorris Sellers specifically.
Steve Spurrier School of Ethics, that's going to be part of graphic design is a passion when
Hell
eventually I do
yes.
bring that back. It's going to
Hell
be so good.
yes.
And this is probably why this is our favorite segment on the show for the most part, because like we agree on a lot of stuff, but I think we like it more when we both slightly disagree. So
Yeah.
we get to see the whole argument. And I mean, I'm always curious to hear what you have to say because you always make great points.
You as well, man. And like I think that I feel like we not to pat ourselves on the back too hard, don't want to, hurt myself, but I think we do a good job of setting ourselves up with topics that are very nuanced. Like there's not a clear one side or the other. Like we may feel and are like I feel very clearly that this is one S, but like I understand that there's a nuance to this argument.
100%. And but I don't think that there's really much debate here that like you got to respect like Alabama in some capacities, even though maybe you don't all the way do it. But yeah, we're gonna move on to our next topic here with we do more than shoot hoops and turn left. We also disrespect Alabama if you play at Florida State if you're Thomas Castellanos.
Hell yes, you do. I love it so much.
Okay, so Thomas Castellanos had a sit-down interview or a phone interview with Pete Nakos of On3. He talked about, why he transferred from Boston College to Florida State. And I was like reading that article. I'm like, okay, he's got some stuff here that like, oh, he knows what's at stake. He's got to win for Mike Norvell. And then the last little bit was just kind of a dig at like he started out his conversation like digging at Bill O'Brien and then digging at Alabama. This guy loves to burn bridges more so than anybody alive.
I mean, on one hand, when it comes to the Bill O'Brien part of it, I respect his candor because, like, it was very clear that that relationship was fractured from early on in the Boston College season. And so, like, I respect his candor of not like sugarcoating. I don't think he said anything that, like, necessarily crossed the line when it came to Bill O'Brien. With Alabama, he might have crossed the line there that he might regret come week one. But, like, yeah, well, my first takeaway is that I don't feel like Thomas Castellanos' media availability is going to be that wide open anymore. I feel like he might be putting time out a little bit by Norvell and that Florida State coaching staff. My second takeaway is, man, that's probably the last thing Florida State needed right now because like you're coming off a 2-10 season. Castellanos, I do agree, like I think raises the floor of what this Florida State team is going to be in 2025. But at the same time, you're really setting yourself up to start on a sour note. Like this could go like if there were any kind of if there was any kind of hesitancy from Kalen DeBoer and that staff of kind of easing into the season, hell, if they're up by 35, they might as well be up by 63. Like that's what this is going to inspire in that Alabama locker room.
Yeah, it might be a Croak Campbell Stadium again.
Yeah, exactly.
So Alabama, I think, has like the third best percentage of making the playoff, like essentially 66% to make it. And I think only Georgia and Texas is more likely.
That's a choice.
That is a choice. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's out there. People did some numbers. Numbers can tell you anything you want. But so Thomas Castellanos grew up in Waycross, Georgia. That's in the southern part of the state. It's kind of down by the timber, the pine area. I don't know if it's more like the western part of the state, like Albany, or over kind of by St. Simon's, but it's not terribly far away from Tallahassee. So a lot of
Yeah.
people in that region are Florida State fans. So you go, maybe Florida State was too good for you to go to play there, but you go play for Gus Malzahn at UCF. I don't know why you transferred after 1 year to go to Boston College. Maybe just playing time.
Probably. I would assume so. Because at that time, it would have been who would have been the quarterback? Actually Gabriel would have been the quarterback at UCF at that point. So like that, it probably was
Yeah.
playing time.
Yeah. I guess Gabriel was still technically there. Then I think about it in retrospect. Yeah. Yeah. Gabriel was there. And then, you go to BC, you're going to play for Jeff Hafley. Obviously, Jeff Hafley leaves to go be the DC for the Packers. And again, that kind of opens it up. I think Bill O'Brien brought with him a former Alabama commit, Dylan Lonergan, who I think could eventually be the guy there. Maybe not this year, but like sooner at some point.
Yeah, no,
So,
definitely.
and then you reunite with Gus Malzahn, but he knows like I guess Castellanos like knows like Yeah, jobs are on the line here.
Mhm.
But then you say something about this about Alabama. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
No, I mean like it's one of the rare interviews, which is my like I mean from the in the content business, my favorite type of interview, where you're incredibly self-aware and also very much not in the same interview, and like that's like what Castellanos went in here and did. Like I think his expectations for what this means for Florida State are spot on. Like he absolutely nailed it, and like I'm sure that's a message that Norvell and the coaching staff want spread from their quarterback, like the leader of the offense. Like that's something that they want spread because hell, Mike Norvell's job is probably on the line if you don't get that message across. So like that's very good. But again, you're also like packaging that message with a shot at probably the best team on your schedule. That's not a great unless they play Clemson. I'm sorry. But regardless, like one of the best teams on your schedule and your week one opponent. Like that's not smart. It's just not, it's not good media savvy.
No, you don't want to lose at home ever. And you don't want to lose a non-conference game of this magnitude at home, even if the other team's probably better than you.
Yeah.
But maybe that's how I would interview. That's how I would interview as a quarterback. I would say stuff like this all the time. I know this is to me. I always touch the third rail. I can't help myself. This is who I am.
No, so you know what? Like honestly, Castellanos' interview reminded me a little bit of like an MLB starting pitcher. Because I feel like most starting pitchers, like you've got to be a little crazy to be a like to make it this far as a pitcher in Major League Baseball. Like truly, just because like they're all wired weird. They're like, I don't know. You've got to just be a weird dude to go out there and be like, yeah, I'm going to throw 90 whatever by you as many times as possible. And then get your S kicked in every now and then and still go out and think you're going to run 90 something by you. Like like you have to be wired differently. And so like the combination of self-awareness and a lack of self-awareness is a very starting pitcher trait.
Yeah, very Zach Greinke of him.
Zach Greinke's a king. I love that dude so much.
I'm not trying to think of who else. Like Greg Maddox would say stuff like this
Yeah.
too.
Oh, Glavin a little bit too. Smoltz for sure. Smoltz for sure would do stuff like this.
Schilling would say stuff like this. Roger
Schilling still
Clemens.
says stuff like this. Are we kidding? Like, come on. Have you ever seen the Zach Greinke cat story? It's one of my favorite things in the entire world.
I have heard of it. Remind the viewers.
Okay, so like I'm paraphrasing this, but someone was talking about cats, and Zach Greinke came up and joined the conversation and said something like, "Oh yeah, you can't trust people with cats; they're unpredictable and yada yada yada." And the teammate asked him, he goes, "So Zach, do you have any animals? Do you have any dogs?" He goes, "No, I don't have a dog. I got a cat though." Just a legend. I love this so much.
He also like threw a baseball like over a fence so somebody could get it.
Yes.
I think he has like he retired with like what 9 career home runs, and they thought like he could like handle the bat well enough to get to 10, but obviously they got rid of they brought universal DH in, so that couldn't happen for him.
Sucks. They should have just let him hit, man. Just let him keep swinging the lumber.
And then if you go like people who aren't saying ridiculous stuff, like LaNorris Sellers like responded to that on the Zach Gelb show, and he's like, I respect Alabama. Alabama's still Alabama. I know they have a new coaching staff, but we played them last year. We lost by 2, and they're on the schedule again this year. So that kind of shows me that Sellers is probably, I know we say he's like the next Cam Newton. I mean, he could be the next Dak Prescott and have a lot of success in the NFL too. There's a lot of similarities there.
100%. Yeah. And like it's definitely the juxtaposition of those two things is definitely noted. And I also think it comes down to like one thing that I am thinking about at least a little bit with Castellanos is you kind of tie it into like the culture of Florida State right now under Mike Norvell. And I don't want to make this like some indictment of the program or anything like that, but the way they reacted to the college football playoff snub at Florida State was not how I would have trained them to do that. Let's say that. Like, I think they reacted quite juvenile and quite childish. Whereas you look at a program like South Carolina, they just go about and handle their business. Shane Beamer is a professional and he runs a professional program. And you see something like this coming out of Florida State, and I'm almost not shocked by it. And like that does tell me a little bit about the Florida State culture that's going on right now.
Yeah, if you're supposed to be the blue blood of the ACC, supposedly the best program in the ACC, all things equal, if everybody is firing all cylinders, Florida State's just going to be better than everybody else. That's just in their nature with
Yeah.
whatever it is. Like, how many teams in the SEC would act like this? Maybe Tennessee back in the day would have done this. You don't see South Carolina doing this. Georgia didn't make the playoff that year, and they
Yeah.
went out there and they beat Florida State by 60 in the Orange Bowl. Go Dogs!
You're right, man. I mean, we had coaches' kids all over the field. It was crazy.
Nothing like Bobo snapping the ball to Muschamp and trying to throw the ball in Bennett's direction.
Oh God. Yeah, love to see it.
Love to see it, and I also love it when they recruit people that are related to people. Always be recruiting. Uh,
That's right.
uh, Dan Lanning lost another recruit. This time it was a five-star quarterback from Folsom, California. Ryder Lyons committed to BYU on the Pat McAfee show. We are living in a simulation, brother.
We are indeed living in a simulation in recruiting. I mean, to be clear, it is indicative of a trend that is currently happening in this recruiting cycle with Oregon. Oregon's missed out, I think like four like high-end recruits right now and like finished second or third as finalists, but not gotten the job done. Now, in the world of that we do live in recruiting, that can change on a dime. Like we still have a long way to go until National Signing Day, and things can change in a heartbeat with depending on how things play out. At the same time, I'm not reading too much into this one. Ryder Lyons is he's a member of the Jesus Christ Church of Latter-day Saints. Like he is a Mormon, and so like going to BYU makes sense. He says his sisters went there. I believe one of his parents went to BYU. So like there is a legacy there to where like Oregon was always playing from behind in this.
Yeah.
However, it is weird to see BYU get a five-star quarterback over Oregon.
Well, also BYU, they moved up. They went from being
Hmm.
essentially like G5 Notre Dame to being in the Big 12. And then I thought they were going to go 4-8. They won like 9 or 10 games last year, looked
Yeah.
pretty good. Kalani Sitake's got that program firing all cylinders. They know exactly who they are. There may be a ceiling with the type of players they can recruit, but if you basically get, Ryder Lyons or like the next Steve Young, like to
Hmm.
come play for your school, like I think that could work out quite well for you. I've been trying to like maybe you've got something to read between the lines from the Oregon perspective of all this. The only thing that I got two things here. The first one is I think people are starting to realize that this is going to be Will Stein's last year at Oregon.
I think that's definitely fair because you look at if I'm not mistaken, three of the four recruits that they missed on have been on the offensive side of the ball. And so like that is definitely a really good read on the situation there. Like it is instability. And to my earlier point of things can change. Like if Will Stein does leave, but they hire some like a hot name, like say they were to hire Andy Kotelnicki and just like give him an absolute bag to come to Oregon and leave Penn State. Like, yeah, you might be able to flip someone like Ryder Lyons. You might be able to flip one of these offensive recruits. Like, but I do think the uncertainty is definitely not doing any favors to this Oregon staff. And like it's it's uh it's counter to what you see at like Georgia or Alabama or like these other like SEC established Texas, Ohio State, yada yada yada. Because like yes, those ties do matter, but at the same time, at those programs that whoever the replacement is probably going to be the best replacement available. At Oregon, yes, they can pay for the best replacement available, but they are still not established in the blue blood nature the way that those other programs are.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting part of it too, where like people will get poached, people will leave, but there's also head coaches that could get let go that are overqualified as an OC to come back. Like Joe Moorhead did that back in
Mm-hmm.
the day.
Yeah.
Like, what if you effectively trade places with Mike Locksley? That'd be a home run hire for Oregon
Yeah.
on the offensive side of the ball. What if I'm not saying they're going to bring Hugh Freeze to the Pacific Northwest, but like
That'd be incredible. I'd love
that
it so
would be.
much.
But like Will Stein could be looking at places like Maryland and Auburn if they open up. Virginia, maybe. Obviously, alma mater of Louisville's not going to. But I think that's kind of a big part of it too. And the other thing that I had is maybe there's something kind of getting out there about Lanning. Maybe there's just something where like what the him being such a great defensive coordinator at Georgia, I just kind of feel that Oregon's defense lets them down and key stretches in big games here. I don't know if it's soft, maybe I don't know what it is, but there's just something about it where like I don't see them just stepping on someone's throat for the kill like they did versus Colorado 2 years ago. They need to do that more. They have it in them, they just don't do it.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a Lanning thing because like I have a hard time saying it's a Lanning thing just because of his roots at Georgia. You know what I mean? And like that Georgia defense under Dan Lanning, had no problem stepping on throats. And maybe that was all Kirby Smart, maybe that wasn't Dan Lanning, but at the same time, like Dan Lanning's person, like it's a very interesting dichotomy between the two because like Dan Lanning's personality from everything I see is a step on your throat type of personality.
Yeah.
Like he's a coach who, like, if I got in a room with him, I'd probably want to go step on some throats. So like I don't know why that is the case, but you're absolutely right. Like like there, it's almost like Dan Lanning is trying to beat the old Oregon out of Oregon.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at his coaching tree, who he's served under: Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, and Todd Graham. Those are all like three very, very aggressive guys.
Yeah.
For great with Saban and Smart, and maybe not so much with Todd Graham, but like,
Yeah, it happens.
Isn't it crazy that he and Mike Norvell are in the same coaching tree?
Life comes at you fast.
What if they paired up? That would be unreal.
Like, it would be something, that's for sure.
They may go on to feel like remember the Titans, but
either that or looking like the little giants out there, one of the two.
But you have any thoughts besides like, maybe Will Stein leaving, maybe there's something with Lanning? What do you think is causing this with Oregon?
I mean, I do wonder, it does, the new legislation that was passed regarding like, athletes being paid NIL by the universities. I do wonder if that's a factor in this because one of Oregon's greatest advantages on the recruiting trail was the Phil Knight money, and there were no guardrails behind that. And like, this is the first guardrail that we really have is to effectively have a salary cap in college football. And so like, I do like, NIL numbers that get reported, like we're going to talk about them, but I also am always dubious of what they are because there were shady dealings happening in college football for decades. And I have a hard time believing that every NIL number, every dollar that's going to these players is being reported to the umpteenth degree. And so like with the Phil Knight money in their back pocket, I do wonder if Oregon doesn't have that at this point. And so like maybe they are working with less resources to be able to do this.
That's a fantastic point. I never thought about that with the NIL because you essentially had an open checkbook basically with Phil Knight, with Nike. Oh, we got cool uniforms. But because nobody outside of Justin Herbert is really from Oregon, and he's from Eugene. He grew up in the hills up there. And he saw
Kevin
everything.
Love's from Oregon. Not that he played at Oregon or played football, but
and his dad played basketball, I think, there.
Yeah.
And his uncle was in the Beach Boys, and this is false
right.
Start. Atlanta Brad just like Brian Wilson. Is Kevin Love still in the NBA?
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no idea. He was on the Cavs for a long time. I don't know if he still is or not. I could see him being like the new Udonis Haslem, like just playing until he's like 43, but not actually ever touching the floor.
He just goes out and like plays one defensive series, slaps the floor, get the team fired up.
I'm just go out there and grab a rebound and get a foul and then get out of there.
You did your job there. But like, since nobody is like, football is like not a hotbed there in Oregon. This is a massive state with 3 million people.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of got to pay a premium to get people to come there. Also, because it's not that level of a traditional power of other teams. So like the money, where's the money, Lebowski, is kind of probably the best way to say it.
100%. Yeah. Where's the money, Lebowski? The rug's really not tying the room together the way it used to, really.
I don't know if Jeff Bridges cares about college football. I want to see him be the guest picker at Oregon. It's pretty good, man. Hope you're doing well, Jeff.
That sounds like the FCC's worst nightmare.
I could see him like calling plays, like being part of like the Hal Mummy Mike Leach tree.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wearing his jellies on the sidelines.
He's got like the big play cards and it's just a roach and he's just like holding it up. Yeah. Yeah, it's not even a picture of a roach. It's a roach just like taped on there.
I will tell you, every time that Jeff Bridges' team goes up against a team called the Eagles, they win because he hates the Eagles.
That's right.
That is good. So I love when the show goes off the rails here. I guess the last little bit is just like besides just like the fact that the LDS connection there for Lions, maybe BYU is more of a player in this than we think going forward.
I definitely think it's part of it. Like you think about BYU, even before they joined the Big 12, before they joined the Power Conference, like they still had a solid talent pipeline. Like you were still seeing consistent NFL draft picks out of there. You were still, and like not just with like LDS connections. Like they've had, because of Kalani Sitake, they've long had like a Samoan and Hawaiian connection as well. And so like they've been able to recruit those areas, and like there is a high Samoan population in Southern California. So if you're able to get your footprint in there, that's going to make your program more attractive, especially as your program naturally becomes more attractive as you move into the Big 12.
I think that makes sense too. Just again, being in the league, they're taking advantage of it. Again, they wanted to level up for this opportunity. They make it happen. So, congratulations to BYU getting a guy who's going to throw some footballs for you like Jim McMahon.
After he takes his Mormon mission, because that is happening. I don't know if you saw that in the on 3 report.
No, I didn't. I didn't know that. So
Talk about the biggest buzzkill of getting a 5-star QB is after he goes on his Mormon mission.
Sean Bradley ain't walking through that door, brother.
Well, yeah, not without ducking, that's for sure.
No, he's not really walking that much anymore. I think that's kind of bad at that
That's
point.
tough.
Sean Bradley, respect. One of the Monstars.
Absolutely. Also the Monstar that like most well represented the actual NBA player that he was doing. Like that Monstar actually looked like Sean Bradley.
So it was Sean Bradley, Muggsy Bogues, Charles Barkley, Larry Johnson.
Larry Johnson and Patrick Ewing. Hell yes.
Oh man, core memories in a LeBron James or in Space Jam.
God, that movie was terrible. The new one. Oh my God.
I don't even think he's a top 5 NBA player anymore.
He's still pretty good, but that's okay.
Yeah, I go MJ, Kareem, Kobe, Bird,
Jason Williams.
Jason. cousin Jason. Which one?
White chocolate, you know.
And that's your spirit animal. My spirit animal is Jim Ora Jr. Senior with playoffs. You kidding me?
That's right.
I almost did that perfectly. I would have been so good. But I looked at this. Trying to see how I say this. What team's odds of making the college football playoff? Are you the most surprised are inflated by a soft schedule? So I looked at this in an article for fansite.com. Went live yesterday. Check it out. So basically, I took every team that had a 20% chance or better of making the playoff based on ESPN's FPI. And then I essentially took of those teams, there's 22 of them, from Texas at 89.3% down to South Carolina at 20.3%.
Right.
And then I just picked the 12 weakest schedules. So we have Oregon at 12, Penn State at 11, USC at 10, Michigan at 9, Notre Dame at 8, Clemson at 7, Miami at 6, SMU at 5, Kansas State at 4, and then 3 group of 5 teams close out with Boise State at 3, Tulane at 2, and UNLV at 1. Where would you like to start? I know that was
I'm 100% with it, and I think the natural place to start, especially based on Monday's episode, is Kansas State with the 64th hardest schedule in the country. And like we were looking at Kansas State being in Athlon's college football playoff bracket projected, and we were looking at it like, are we really sure about this? But when you see that they have the 64th hardest schedule, you kind of understand why they might be getting a little bit of a boost ahead of the other Big 12 teams, at least in terms of projections. Again, I do not think they're as good as Arizona State. I do not think they're as good as Iowa State. But if we're talking about doing the math behind it, if you have a middling schedule when other programs in your conference don't necessarily have as middling of a schedule, that matters.
They have a very interesting schedule. So they open the year in week 0 in Farmageddon in Dublin versus Iowa State, which is probably their toughest game on their schedule. And then their 3 non-conference games are North Dakota, Army, and technically Arizona, even who's in the Big 12. And
love it.
It's Baylor and Utah, I think, is the other one too, because they kept that.
I feel like they play annually, yeah.
In annual non-conference games.
Yeah, it's so dumb, but whatever.
I mean, y'all have done that with Wake and football.
We have indeed done it with Wake and football. And I found it dumb then too. Like, whatever. Just play a 10th conference game. I don't care.
That's so dumb.
We know this is an ACC game. We know this is a Big 12 game. Like, we're not stupid.
I know. Maybe we are, but there's other games on K-State's schedule that I think are tough. Baylor, going to Baylor, maybe home versus TCU, at Kansas, home versus Texas Tech. And at Utah, I don't think you and I are expecting very much out of UCF or Oklahoma, but K-State does not draw Arizona State or BYU this year. So, you're kind of looking at a team with, for lack of a better word, if Avery Johnson's not just hellacious ass, like their floor is 9-3.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I mean, I will say, like, playing Army in a non-conference game, that scares me a little bit. Like, I know Army is not like you lost a lot from last year. I understand that, but like coming back from Ireland and then like pretty close after having to play a triple option team, like it's not a lot of time to prepare for that. Kansas State's defense was not very good last year, and that I got my eyes there. That might be a trap game we're looking at come down the line.
A little bit here. I'm trying to think what I got. I'm trying to think which one I wrote that was like really strange to me because you hit the nail on the head. Like Kansas State's the biggest. Like that one had me thinking, for sure. I want to talk about USC. I want to talk about USC here. I think I got some thoughts about them.
Let's go because I have some thoughts as well.
So they have the 21st best chance of making the playoff at 21%. I'm not a fan of Lincoln Riley. They have the 28th hardest schedule in the country. Um, they do have to play Notre Dame in the non-conference, but the other two are versus Missouri State and the Fighting Clay Heltons versus Georgia Southern. They have some tough games, at Oregon, at Illinois, and maybe at Nebraska.
Yeah.
They have some tough home games, at home versus Michigan and Iowa, but they had a lot of layups here, like Michigan State, Northwestern, maybe UCLA. But you're not playing Indiana, you're not playing Ohio State, you're not playing Penn State. You know, there's losses to be had on this schedule, but like if it all goes well, you could go 9-3, and that's maybe why people have them as a contender here because like I don't know, I feel like there's just some every game is either hard or easy for USC.
Yeah, and most of it's by their like by self-infliction, frankly.
Yeah.
Like it's they're either like you want to talk about people who are unbelievable front runners, and I say that derogatorily when we say it complimentary to Shane Beamer, Lincoln Riley. When things
Yeah.
are going well, Lincoln Riley's a phenomenal head football coach. When things are going poorly, like Lincoln Riley is not a wartime head coach. That's the best way to say it. And like, look, man, you're playing in the Big Ten, and like I understand that on paper the schedule doesn't look that difficult, but at the same time, it's the Big Ten. Things get weird, things get gritty, things get muddy, and I don't trust Lincoln Riley to be able to navigate even an easy schedule.
And we think Michigan State's going to be better, but I don't think either of us have like the stones at this point. It's like, yeah, they're going to win like 8 games. I don't think I can quite get there yet.
No, 100% not.
And I was thinking about this. He's not a wartime guy. I'm following one of the Braves game on Twitter last night, and they put in a Raisel Iglesias versus the Mets, and I just see the same like the wartime guy, like everything's just getting bombed behind him, just like the dog. All the names are just like this is so horrible. Again, I don't know what's going on in the Braves game right now. We'll find out after we log off for the day here. But like, yeah, he's not built for he's not a foxhole guy.
No, he's definitely not. And like he'll throw you in the foxhole, but he's staying the hell out of there. That's for sure.
You're gonna cross no man's land because I don't want you here.
That's right, because you're no man for me. The other one I found kind of interesting, and I think kind of more or less like backs up one of our points is Penn State being outside the top 25 in terms of most difficult schedules. Like things are really setting up nicely. And you look at this schedule and like the non-conference is laughable, frankly.
Yeah.
Like you got Nevada, FIU, and Villanova at home. Like, okay, 3-0, great. Congratulations. Then you get a bye week before you start conference play, and you play Oregon at home in Happy Valley. So like that's big for you. Your toughest road game is obviously Ohio State. After that, Iowa before the week before. Oh no, wait, you get a bye between Iowa and Ohio State, but those are your two toughest road games back to back. I still think Penn State's just a way better team than Iowa. But then you get Indiana at home. You do have to go on the road to Michigan State, but you get Nebraska at home. You avoid playing Michigan. You avoid playing USC. Like things are really breaking right for Penn State. And like we're high on them. We believe that they're going to be able to navigate this. But at the same time, like if Penn State doesn't get it done this year, this will be the biggest indictment on James Franklin yet.
Yeah, like the Ohio State game, I would venture they're probably going to lose that. If you beat Oregon, non-conference is a complete joke.
Yeah.
And like, okay, the Iowa, Ohio State, Indiana trifecta back to back to back. That's tough. Maybe Michigan State wins their rivalry game with them, but like we always say James Franklin's a driver 10-2. You got to go 11-1 or 12-0.
I was about to say just you drive right there, baby. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Lean back. Detroit leaning.
James Fat Joe Franklin. Let's go.
I was not ready for that. uh, what's love got to do with it, I guess.
That's right.
Penn State's a good one. I'll throw one more out there before we move on to our last topic here. I'm gonna go with the G5 one. I'm gonna go with UNLV here just because they were number one. They had the 113th hardest schedule. Congratulations, Dan Mullen.
Hell yes.
Um, but they have a 21.3% chance of making it the playoff. I think the part of it is like they really need to like beat up in like the non-conference. Like they got to get a win over UCLA. They got to beat Miami, Ohio out of the MAC because Sam Houston, Idaho States aren't going to do it.
Right.
And I mean, like, yeah, your toughest game is probably at Boise State, then at Colorado, but probably not drawing Fresno on the schedule helps you.
Yeah.
Mullen's a great coach, and he's won at a very high level at programs like this, like at Mississippi State before. But like, it's the epitome of like, I think they could win all their games, but if they lose one, they're not making it.
Right. And like I will say, like one thing that definitely stands out to UNLV, and like when you think of who Dan Mullen is as a head coach, he got fired from Florida because he can't recruit or doesn't. Let me be clear about that. Doesn't want to recruit. I don't think he has any interest in doing it. He probably could. He's a personable guy, can make it work, but he's a hell of an in-game coach. And when you have a schedule that is this advantageous, like that means quite a bit. Like that means that Dan Mullen is probably going to have a coaching advantage in most of these matchups.
And then you also have a quarterback advantage in most of thing these matchups with guys coming over from the Power Five, with Anthony Calanger coming over from Virginia,
My boy.
which is a king, and then Alex Orji, who can't throw from Michigan. But you have both of them there. That's going to mess up a Mountain West league that's in a bit of transition. And again, outside of Boise State, and I think we think Colorado State's going to be good. And then like I'm probably leaning Fresno, but there's a lot of bottom. There's a lot of bottom in that league.
I mean, like New Mexico lost both Bronco Mendenhall and Devin Dampier. Like that's not a great spot to be in. You've got Nevada, who God only knows what Nevada's going to do at this point. Hawaii hasn't been the same in a minute. Like you're looking at a lot of programs that are
Yeah,
either bottoming out or in transition, which is not a good place to be
like
for those
Wyoming's.
programs. It's a good place to be for UNLV, to be clear.
Yeah, like Wyoming's down. Air Force had a bad year. Other programs that usually keep it up. But like maybe this is that San Jose State with the Fighting Cannons go.
There we go. Ken baby. Let's go.
Do, 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 do,
I
do.
hope not, because if that does happen at some point, I'm gonna have to say his name, and that's gonna go brutally.
No, no, Louis Matalolo ain't happening for you, but
It's really not.
it's really hot. It's really not. And if Admiral Akbar saw Kinui Matalolo, he would say this: "It's a trap."
That's right.
Looking at potential trap games for CFP contenders, so which ones you think you're going to fall into the most. I went with a little bit different for trying to find like contenders or favorites. So for Fansided, I wrote this also yesterday because apparently that's what I do. I do write for a living. It's kind of crazy sometimes to think about that.
Right.
But I basically took every team from FanDuel that has plus 200 odds or better at making the playoff. I think basically anybody that's got 1,000 or better like stands a really good chance.
Yeah.
Liberty's got like plus 1250, but they play the softest schedule in the country.
Yeah, I mean, you lose one of those games and you're completely disqualified, frankly.
So teams on here that I think could be, could fall in the trap. Alabama, Boise State, Clemson, Georgia, LSU, Miami, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Oregon, Penn State, and Texas. Any of those teams that you like the trap game I have, or you want to do something better that I missed out on?
No, so the one I really like is Boise State hosting App State, like
Okay.
on September 27th. And I think that's really interesting because you look at Boise State, and I think one of the like hallmarks of the Broncos in their history, not just in the modern era of Boise State football, is they play up to competition. But when they play like requisite like G5 competition, they can get into dogfights every now and then. And a team like Appalachian State hiring Dow Loggins, and I understand that Appalachian State lost a bit, but this is a well-run program. This is and like we're high on Dow Loggins, and like we think that's going to be a good hire that really levels Appalachian State to, helps Appalachian State find its level. And I know that App State is going to have to travel across the country to Idaho, which is probably going to be a culture shock for a lot of the boys from Boone. But at the same time, like that is a game that could be very tricky. And I think a game that Boise State could potentially overlook. And I think that that's a very interesting spot for them. I'm gonna have eyes on that game for sure.
Yeah, because it's right before Notre Dame,
Hmm.
and Boise State basically runs roughshod over everybody in the Mountain West. App State has been a contender in the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt still hasn't sent a team to the playoff yet. That's going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
We trust Dow Loggins. We know that App State also has a history of being a giant killer. So
Hmm.
uh, be ready for that. I was really excited to put that one down.
No, I really like that one. Which one's your favorite? Let me ask, let me turn it around on you. Which one's your favorite?
Um, I don't know if it's specifically my favorite. I've got two or three that really stand out to me. I'm gonna go with, you know which one I'm gonna go with? I'm gonna go with LSU potentially losing at Vanderbilt on September 18th.
Live dog, baby.
Live dog. This is like I can't quit Diego Pavia.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I'm addicted to the live dog. There's something about LSU and Garrett Nussmeier, and again, it's the same prototype of every single quarterback that is like this that coming out. It's Matthew Stafford, it's Sam Darnold, it's Justin Herbert, it's Blake Bortles. They all kind of have this like physically fit specimens can do a lot of things, but like there will be times where like maybe they just don't show up in crunch time, or they're usurp Blake Bortles, the dark night of garbage time.
That's right. Absolute fantasy football king in those days, though.
Hell yeah. I'm trying to remember exactly what I put down here. It's like a spot on their schedule. I think it's so you got Magnolia and then you got South Carolina, and then after the trip to Nashville, you've got to host A&M, and then you go to Alabama. So you've got four pretty high stakes games
Mhm.
there against playoff caliber teams as well. Vanderbilt's not that, but Vanderbilt's a bowl caliber team, and
Yeah.
they did this to Alabama a year ago, and they almost beat Texas. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, to a point I love to make, like one of the things about Diego Pavia is he is not a traditional quarterback in the slightest, and Vanderbilt, as a result, does not run a traditional offense. And you're sandwiched in there between a lot of offenses that you're going to see a lot of variations of in college football. Like even with Texas A&M and Marcel Reed, like the Colin Klein offense, like that's been around for a long time, where you just have a lot of quarterback run game. With Diego Pavia, it's basically schoolyard ball, man. And like for an LSU defense that I do believe is going to be improved, but is still like has a lot of new faces, has a defensive coordinator who's only in his second season. Playing an offense like that in that stretch of the schedule, that's definitely tough. So I like that call a lot.
The only thing is like Brian Kelly teams like usually lose the first game of the season, the last game of the season, they just win the rest.
It's true. It's very true.
That's kind of, but like I'm envisioning him like being really sad in Nashville, having a bad time.
I like just sitting at like Luke Bryan's bar just by himself, surrounded by Antonio and all the bachelorettes at the birthday party.
Just sitting there looking down at the Cumberland, watching a barge go by. Like, what did I do to deserve
That's
this?
right.
Any other one on there you find intriguing?
There was one I just had. Clemson playing at home against Duke, and to me, one of my few remaining like trepidations when it comes to Clemson is I'm still not sure that Garrett Riley is like all that in a bag of chips. Like I still think he might be a little bit oversold in terms of how good. Like I think he's a fine offensive coordinator. I don't think he's bad by any stretch of the imagination. But now you're going up against Manny Diaz on a tough spot in the schedule, right in the middle of ACC play, and Duke is a team that whether it was like just over the past few years with defensive minded head coaches, whether that was Elko or Manny Diaz, they've done a really good job of like leveling the playing field. However they do that, then like I'm not schematically smart enough to be able to tell you like exactly how they do that, but I've watched them do it 100 times. Like SMU
Right.
was a substantially better football team than Duke was a year ago, and they still probably should have beat SMU. And like they've upset teams like they've beaten North Carolina in years where North Carolina was good. They've beaten NC State in years where NC State is good. Like they just have the ability to level the playing field, muck things up. And when a Garrett Riley offense gets mucked up, we've seen Clemson really struggle to be able to like try to right the ship. And so like I think we saw it last year against South Carolina, frankly. And so like when you have these types of games, I think especially in a tough spot in the schedule, especially late in the season when you're going to be dealing with injuries, Clemson's not going to be at full strength. Duke at like I think one of the things we kind of overlook in a lot of situations is whenever a power program loses some like a starter or something like that to injury, we think, well, they're a power program. They have these recruits going out there. Well, a lot of
Right.
these times those backups are now at Duke or they're now at a smaller program that doesn't have the same prestige and they're looking for playing time. So Duke is running out a rotation of guys rather than just having their studs out there. And it's the rotation of these guys that transferred for more playing time. And so like I'm more confident in a team like Duke late in the season to have the depth to be able to withstand injuries than Clemson. So like this could like I'm not projecting injuries or anything like that, but they're going to happen. It's football. And so like at this point in the season, Clemson could find themselves in a tricky spot with a matchup against Manny Diaz.
So I was looking about this kind of like the other articles, like they have a soft schedule, but they still schedule South Carolina and LSU. Like I'm trying to figure this out. They're playing most of the upper crust of the ACC. They're not playing Miami, but they got Georgia Tech, they got SMU, they got Louisville, and they got Duke. Maybe
Mhm.
just the bottom of the ACC. Maybe they're just not playing the middle.
Yeah.
I was just like saying like this kind of frustrates me, which also goes to the
There
point of
really
like,
isn't a middle. I think that's kind of the dirty
yeah,
secret. There's a bottom and there's a top, and when it comes to grinder in the ACC, I guess.
put that on my tombstone. Or not. I don't know. Sponsored by Grinder.
Probably not, but you know, whatever.
No, no. But so like Clemson should be able to have the season that we think they're capable of because they have the places, the stuff on the schedule to have the marquee wins.
Mhm.
But like the schedule's also navigable too. This just kind of seems like one where like you mentioned this, like maybe injuries pile up and maybe this is the straw that breaks the camel's back or the levee breaks in that situation.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, it's as much as I am high on Clemson this year, like I still have some issues trusting them.
Yeah, the Garrett Riley of it all. I trust Tom Allen and Dabo Swinney 100%,
A
but
hundred
I don't
percent.
trust. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, you know, you carry the baggage of your family name. Let's say that.
Oh man, that's tough. But and I mentioned this at the start of the program. I feel like I gotta finish this. For Texas, I think that their trap game's at Florida on
Mhm.
October 5th. This comes down to the concept of they've got three really tough road games. First to start the year at Ohio State, and then you play at Georgia later between the hedges.
Yeah.
Florida's going to be challenging. And then like I think the Florida date comes like right before I think this comes right before
Hmm.
Red River,
Wed with
who
a
I think
baby.
which I think we think Oklahoma is going to be a lot better because of John Mateer and Jaden Zach and Ben Arbuckle. So I feel like maybe there's just too much focus on the Ohio State game and then Georgia. Maybe you don't do the prep that you need to versus DJ Lagway. But then I don't know, I'm trying to think like maybe Billy Napier he's not stuck in his head versus Sark so much. So maybe that game will be closer. But I still think Texas is going to be really good, but probably going to be closer to 10-2 than 12-0.
No, and I think that's fair, but I mean, like 10-2 with this schedule, you're
Yeah.
cruising into the playoff.
Yeah, I think like the only teams with a harder schedule are what Oklahoma, Florida, Vanderbilt.
Yeah, which are not the caliber of Texas. Sorry,
No,
but like,
no.
they're just not.
No, so but I don't know, like the Florida Texas game like really intrigues me. Like if whoever wins that, like because we did this stuff for Florida. Like if you win that game, maybe you're pushing into the playoff too. Maybe Texas
Yeah,
is on the brink.
100%. And I mean, yeah, that's definitely one to circle. And the week before Red River always feels like a trap game for Texas because you know they're getting up for that one.
100%. They're gonna go down there. They're gonna eat the fried Oreos, the
That's
fried
right.
pickles,
I could
the
go for
fried
some
everything.
fried Oreos. It's it's dinner time out here in Mountain Time as we record on Wednesday night, and I'm hungry.
Yeah, I had a late lunch. Had a snack, and probably gonna have some ice cream after here because it's summertime and that's what you do here, man.
Hell yeah, baby.
And this was episode 187 of False Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle20. You can follow the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Give us a 5-star review. That's about the amount of teams that I think Thomas Castellanos was going to try to play for, but he's only at 3.
Hey, there's still time. You never know.
I gotta finish with this. So the Arizona State podcast is making. We've been watching a lot of Bueller centric shows. So we watched Righteous Gemstones. We watched Vice Principals on a very much Danny McBride kick. So now we're watching. Now we're watching the reruns of Big Little Lies with like Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman. You ever watch that?
First season of that show is incredible.
Yeah, we're about 4 episodes in here, and I saw this part where Adam Scott's dancing like Elvis, and I'm like, he's a raging dork.
Oh, 100%, dude.
But there's like a scale to it, though.
Well, I think so. I love Adam Scott. Like, I think he's a phenomenal actor, but like comedy and drama, I just think he's a really good actor, and I think he has a really good idea for it. But my God, and I say this as someone with a massive head myself, there's never been a bigger head I've seen than Adam Scott's. It makes him look exponentially more dorky than he is.
Yeah. But like the dork scale, like the 5-star dork is like the Jeff Goldblum of the world, where you're like, I'm gonna listen to this guy. I can learn stuff from him. He's so cool, but he's still a dork.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And then the other end of it is Jeff Passett. I'm just like, just stop, please.
For sure.
Oh my gosh. Also, the fact that young Sheldon's in this show.
I don't think I ever processed that.
Yes.
Oh, crap. I'm not cursed, so that's why I said crap. But that's wild. I did not process that.
So, if his mom is Shailene Woodley and he was with Aaron Rodgers for a while, does that mean Aaron Rodgers is the father of Sheldon?
Hey, let me see the DNA test. Let's get him on Maury right now.
Let's get him on Maury. Let's get him on the Pat McAfee show. And this is False Start.